Hey, welcome to Everyday Economics, the podcast helps you understand the economic world going on all around us. Everyday Economics is brought to you by the Center Square Newswire service. I'm Chris Krug, publisher of the Center Square, and Orphe Dibangi is my partner on the show. I call him Doctor because he's a PhD economist. Today is Monday, May 18th, 2026. In this episode, we're talking about the squeeze building under the surface of the American household, what PCE, the energy shock, and the rate move are all going to do to real spending power. Oh, two shocks, one squeeze, and a Federal Reserve that's running out of clean choices. Your column this week reads the economy as still standing, but with the squeeze building up underneath it. Tariff pass-through and the energy spike near the Strait of Hormuz are both still working through. Oh, and by the way, we have a new Federal Reserve chairman in Kevin Warsh. Fun first week for him, huh? Let's get into this. Let me ask you a direct question. We're going to spend more time on what the next episode and talk about Kevin Warsh and what he's walking into. He, of course, replaced Fed Chair Jerome Powell, whose term expired at the end of last week. Like I said, we're going to spend some time with him on that subject matter in the next episode. For now, let's stay in the moment. The personal consumption index this week, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, looks like prices are moving the wrong way again. Your column lays out a chain. Input costs hit firms first, margins absorb for a while, then the bill lands on the household. That's inflation as a hidden tax on every family. Real disposable income's falling. Real spending not really growing. Where are we in the chain right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the margin compression stage, really. PPI up a lot due to the energy shock. And then, imagine you're running a business and all of a sudden your electricity bill's gone up. You also have higher prices to pay for goods that get to the door that you have to sell, right, to your consumers, because ultimately transportation costs have also risen. And so you have a choice to make, a very simple choice to make. You can either absorb the smaller margin, right, that margin compression. And if you do, well, you're likely going to slow down hiring. You're going to invest less. You have less to invest. To invest. You're taking a hit on your paycheck, potentially, you're a small business owner. Or you could just pass on the price increase, right? The cost increase to consumers. That's the math that small business owners have to deal with. And so that's what's going on throughout the economy. First, tariffs that have pushed goods prices higher. And now the energy shock playing out, right, throughout this economy. And ultimately, look, it means, well, one, the labor market's likely to remain somewhat sluggish. In fact, we could go from the low fire, frozen labor market to a deeper freeze. And consumers will eventually have to face higher prices. That's where we are right now.
So since the conflict started, Israel, Iran, United States, and everything that's going on in the Middle East right now, the 10-year Treasury is up 54 basis points. The 30-year fixed mortgage is up 60 basis points. And what that looks like, is real tightening. It lands on the same households that are currently still making their way through the, I guess it would be the aftermath of tariffs as they land on the consumer.
Yeah.
And then
not just consumers, right? Remember, businesses too have to borrow, right? So it's and some businesses are going to have to refinance debt, right, at a much higher rate. And so, businesses, households, everyone's feeling the squeeze right now. And I think that's a problem. You got prices going up, but now yields, interest rates are going up. And so, you're getting hit on every side.
So, I mean, I guess, what is it? The transmission research says that a 1 point hike costs roughly 0.4% of GDP over an 18-month span. Markets are starting to price the next move as a hike. I really felt like, when I woke up this morning, based on some of the chatter on social media, that the seemingly positive visit that Trump and his entourage had in China was going to send futures screaming up. Not really the case. It looks the market looks somewhat unmoved. Treasury borrowing costs are climbing. That puts pressure on the base, of course, but um, markets are starting to price the next move in as a hike. How real is that?
Well, it really depends, right? It depends on whether or not inflation expectations start to move up, right? I think you have a Fed that understands that households don't live in the inflation rate; they live in the price level. And what do I mean by that? The rate of change, right, is going to eventually slow. In fact, when you look at energy prices, they were up something like 17% in March, and then they were up roughly 10% in April. So you already start to see that the rate of change, the rate of increase has slowed from the previous month. The problem is that doesn't mean prices are coming down. They're still going up, right? And the price level is much higher. When people show up at the pump, they're seeing higher gas prices, and that's taking a chunk out of their paychecks. When they go to the store, they're seeing higher goods prices, higher food prices. That's taking a bigger chunk out of their paychecks. And so because households live in the price level, and the price level is higher than it was before, there's an element of demand destruction coming, right? What do I mean by that? I simply mean that, you can't afford as much as you could before. And so you're ultimately buying or spending less. Disposable income, inflation adjusted disposable income is flat, slightly down now on a year-over-year basis, meaning households' purchasing power has gone down. And if you can afford less than you used to be able to afford before, right, you're spending less. And as you spend less, the economy slows. And that's ultimately what's coming. And so you're going to have some Fed board of government members that are going to say, well, potentially we probably should not be hiking, because if you start hiking now, you might have to reverse that very soon and start cutting to rescue this labor market and rescue the household. And so the best move, in my opinion, is still to stay put and kind of wait and see what happens, right? A Fed that hikes into a supply shock risks making things even worse, because, like I mentioned, right, higher interest rates slow down the economy, could potentially shrink it. And so with some demand destruction likely to come, the Fed is better off standing still, sitting on the sidelines and waiting to see what happens, letting this shock kind of pass through the economy, and allowing us to get to the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you articulated that extremely well. I mean, it comes back to the fact that the Federal Reserve can't make oil cheaper, and
That's right.
So,
But it can make
all right.
the
Hey, well,
problem worse for households.
right. Yeah. I mean, just anecdotally, $5 a gallon here in the Pittsburgh area. Before I left my home in suburban Chicago, I was looking at signs that were all the way up to 5.30, 5.29.9. So I thought we were getting a little bit of a reprieve last week. There was a momentary dip, but that went straight away. Hey, thanks as always, Dr. O. Make sure that you read Orphe's Everyday Economics column Mondays in the Center Square, and listen to what we have to say every weekend on the Center Square Radio Hour.